Yeah. They're purple and they come in a skin like an onion does.
Yeah.
So they're it's like almost like a mix between an onion and a garlic clove.
Okay. Well, we are live.
Nice.
So we will wait a few minutes while people get here. Because
we could do a cooking channel while people get here.
Ooh, we could. Let's do it. Okay, how to stream. Oh, go live. I have to go live at each place. Okay. You are live. Oh, I'm live on Instagram. Okay.
Hello, Jules.
We have 12 people
here.
You go to comments.
Oh, yes.
I'm in the wrong.
Hi, Jules.
Yes.
And there's Steven.
Yes. We're talking about scallions. Was that it?
Cooking, yeah.
Yeah.
Cooking. Well, we wait for people to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot of meetings today. Kelly was in a meeting for 2 hours. We were in a meeting for 2 hours. Good day from Australia. Ooh, Jackie, is it racist?
Where in Australia are you?
Note for people on YouTube. Change chat from top chat to live chat if you want to see everything. Yes, thank you.
Good.
Julie.
Thank you.
I didn't know
Good
that.
tip.
I don't know how to do anything.
YT, and I had no idea what that was. So good job for understanding what YT was, because
it was either YouTube or Whitey like you. So I figured it was YouTube. Brisbane. Scott
like?
J. Moses.
What's the weather like in Brisbane? Is it stormy? It was stormy a while ago.
Do you keep track of the weather at home?
Well, no, I'm from Melbourne and my dad lives in Perth, but we have a couple of clients in the Queensland area and the power kept going out and stuff. Oh, there we go. It's the bit on the eastern side that sticks out. Yes, there you go, Lane. It's if you look at a map of Australia, it's where
it's really hot this week. Oh, that's right. We do have clients in Australia. We have clients everywhere because we are very, very big and fancy. Okay, if you have questions, don't feel.
Victoria. My client lives in Victoria.
Victoria.
Don't say it like that. That's where I'm from. It's a perfectly normal place.
Oh, you're from Victoria?
Yes.
How is she? Do you talk to her a lot?
Yeah, she's my client.
You're so funny, Lane.
Hilarious. Just hilarious.
So
Anne says, I like to argue, so thank you for insisting I am funny. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to kill the conversation.
Yeah, you killed it.
So
I don't know where
I have a client. My client Caroline's in Cairns.
It's in FNQ. Far North Queensland.
Oh.
Okay. How do you say that though?
Hi, Joanna.
Cairns?
Just don't say the R. Just say Cairns.
Cairns? Like Cairns, France?
No, just don't try it. Just don't. Look.
Cairns?
Don't do it.
Cairns?
An hour north of Victoria, but different Victoria. I don't know.
How big is Australia? Is it like Texas, like 18 million?
No, it's the size of the continental United States, dude. It's the same
size. I don't know. I'm a dumb American. I barely left the country. What do I know?
Thank you, Kari.
Victoria, BC. Okie doke.
British Columbia.
I thought so, but we were talking about Australia. I just signed a client from Canada, and I'm super excited about.
That's awesome.
Yep, the book's going to be amazing.
Did you get that client that you wanted?
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh, I didn't tell you?
No.
Oh, I thought I did. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No worries.
You told me.
You told Jackie. You just didn't tell me.
Oh, I told Jackie.
So we look almost the same.
Yes, he can't tell us apart.
I mean, we're all women, so we can't tell us apart. So.
Oh, you can't say that. That's super sexist. You make me look so bad.
That's what we're here for.
She's just mad because she called and I answered ahoy hoy, which is what I answered to Nat. So I thought it was Nat.
Again, because we look so similar, and our names,
On a phone.
especially on
Hi,
a phone,
everyone.
You got a
Do-
question?
alike.
We do. Do agents
All right.
considered Labor Day like New Year's Day and ignore any slush entries from the late spring? I'm Canadian, Lane. Hello from Canada, or you're in Canada. I can't talk. I think everyone has been out of the office for the past
3 months.
3 weeks. It feels like everyone said I'll be back on August 19th, and then when you email, they don't answer till August 20th, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm out for Labor Day." So I don't know. It depends. Agents, do you read?
I don't know that I understand the question. Do we consider it like New Year's Day and ignore slush entries from the late spring? I don't know what they mean by ignore slush entries.
Like, I mean, I wonder if they mean like, do we just like after Labor Day, do
Read.
we everything before? Do we like ignore those? That's what
Okay.
I'm thinking.
No, and I don't do that on New Year's Day either. My slush carries over from year to year and from. Okay, do you start fresh? A clean slate? No. The answer is no.
The only
I'm
time
still
we start
working.
a clean slate is when we actually clean the slate.
Yeah.
That means reading through all of them. So
Right.
I'm still working through queries from, I think, 2022.
Yeah.
2023. Can anyone hear my dog, or is that
Yes.
like okay? Yeah, they're fighting. They are. Doug is a doodle, and he is a fantastic guard dog, sweetest dog you've ever met. But if he doesn't know you, he'll murder you and lap up your blood like a lunatic.
Yes, but we love him. Yes.
That was a great question to start us off with. Are there other questions?
No problem. Yeah. We're happy to be here to answer questions, and if you have any, and otherwise we'll just start talking about cooking again and shallots and telling Lane what shallots are. So
We were talking about
scallions.
Scallions.
scallions. 'Cause I was about to say, what are shallots?
Oh,
Scallions.
okay. Well, then this is my bag because I used a shallot, not a scallion. I was talking about a shallot,
Oh my gosh.
not a scallion, but I think I said scallion. So that's where the confusion lies.
What advice can you give to people who write but don't illustrate graphic novels? Ooh, I wish Natasha was here, but she's not, so I'll let someone else.
I mean,
Millie
other people here represent graphic novels.
does.
Right.
So do
So, but Nat has sold the most script only graphic novels. So really the best advice I can give is to have a really well-rounded proposal. So you need to have, oh gosh, I need to look this up, what I've sent out before. A great proposal would include a pitch broken down into probably 4 acts, well-detailed synopsis, including then a section describing your world, all of your characters, in depth. It's several pages long, 10, 12 pages. And I always like to see what writers are envisioning for the art style. So sending along samples that you think would go with the vibe that you are going for. I don't always send that out, but sometimes it can be very helpful. And then you will also need to have, you don't need to have the entire script written, but you would need to have, I think, at least the first couple of chapters written out in script form. So what do you guys do?
I mean, I would agree with that. I also think that right now, what I've noticed industry-wise is that script only are becoming a lot tougher. I just actually had another agent from a different agency reached out to me and is partnering with one of my illustrators to try to submit a graphic novel. So she did some artwork for the author, and they've decided to partner up. So hoping that if the project gets picked up, they'll take them both on. But if not, that was okay too. Like, so we put it together, a collaboration agreement. So that's
Right.
another way to approach it, is find an illustrator who might want to partner up with you and then do it that way. And get a collaboration agreement put into place on how things will be handled payment wise, et cetera, down the line. So
I think that's really smart. I've had more and more editors tell me that they really are only considering graphic novels with the art attached.
it's such a
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jackie.
I don't want to interrupt that train of thought.
Hmm.
I mean, one thing, I don't really dabble much often in graphic novels, but I do have a couple of authors who are not illustrators who've done work for hire graphic novels, usually smaller educational pieces. But I'm thinking, if it's something you want to do, that's not necessarily a bad way to get used to the form. You know, if you like, so if you're very new to the form and you want to try it, there are work for hire projects where they already have their illustrator and they just want someone to put together a script. You know, and it's not something that's going to make you a ton of money. And if you do those contracts, you know, what I say is make sure you get attribution so people know that it's you. So if, you know, you want to then develop that, people know you're not, because a lot of work for hire, you don't automatically get attribution, you don't get your name on the cover. But that's what, you know, some of my clients have been doing.
Yeah, and I don't do graphic novels. What are some of your favorite books you've read this year? I brought books for that. Midnight Rooms, Danye Coles. This is an ARC. Beautiful cover. And this one by Dr. Robin George Andrews that talks about the planetary defense and what we're going to do if a asteroid comes and kills us, which is very important because I often tell people, who knows what'll happen tomorrow? Asteroid may fall and kill us, and I probably just jinxed us.
I mean, if we're allowed to plug client projects, and I can plug this because actually she sold it before she met me, so I'm not making any money on this. But I love Asher Grayling's The Vampire of King Street, which is coming out this week, I think. And it's just,
I can't wait to read that.
It's a historical murder mystery in an alternate 1920s New York with where vampires are servants to the elite, and it's and a young Indian American girl who bucked all her parents' expectations and went to law school, is trying to start a little law practice downtown. It's just tremendous.
I just finished The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane by Lisa C., and it was phenomenal. I listened to it on audio, and I'm so glad I did, because the pronunciation of names and places would have been really, and just cultural things would have been hard for me if I were reading it in a book. So it was a really well done narration. I just absolutely loved it. I was so sad when it ended.
Are we supposed to plug our client books? Because I have a lot of fall client books, and I'm sure.
No,
Kelly,
but I mean,
client books too.
It says, what are your favorite books that you've read?
Yeah, this year.
Well, of course, my client book, So Crushing It, came out already this year, which is an excellent middle grade book. And then Team Canteen is coming out very soon. Tom Phillips' third book in the Curious League of Detectives and Thieves series came out, The Peruvian Express. We also have Streetlight People from Charlotte
We're also
Thomas.
very curious your favorite reads this year.
And then, also, This Girl's a Killer. We can't forget about that. This Girl's a Killer is coming out. All these books are my favorite. Another book that is not a client book that I really enjoyed this year was My Roommate is a Vampire. I thought that one was
yes, I like that.
clever and funny, and it was just a good, lighthearted romance read that that I really, really enjoyed.
What
So.
about the how-to guide novel you're
I haven't read
reading?
it yet. I haven't read
You
my
haven't. I
book.
thought. I mean, you're hawking it everywhere. Or is it just so you can make that joke?
It's so I can make that joke. Also, because I do want to read it though. I just haven't read it yet, so I can't say whether I like it or not.
Before you go to the next question, I would just like to say to Kari, next time I get to Australia, we have to bring it, because I do think we get bragging rights. We have the best coffee, and it is worth the bragging rights.
Mm. Does that carry over to picture books too, as in does coffee? Because coming with the photographer for cookbooks is also yes, I'm not going to answer that for picture books, but I'm talking about cookbooks.
So, meaning, does text only picture books? Are editors wanting to have the art attached to picture books? This is a tricky one. I think I think you can still sell text only picture books. I think there are a lot of editors and art directors who still really enjoy pairing the text with the art. However, I have seen more and more people, editors and art directors, requesting author illustrator projects. And it's a financial reason. It's easier with the contracting department. It's easier for payments. And
holdups. I've had author-only books where it's just been really hard to find an illustrator, and then things get pushed back, and then that messes up everyone's publication schedules and stuff.
On that, because Johnny Compton's The Spite House, we're doing a special edition of it, and the illustrator, we've gone through a couple illustrators because people lose track of things or take too long, so it makes sense that they would want an author illustrator.
Right.
I think. I mean, I don't like picture books. I don't know anything about picture books. I mean,
Can't
you
say
don't
that.
like
unless it's a hoarder picture book. Hoarder picture books. I want to sell a hoarder picture book. I sat down with an editor. Natasha said there's no such thing as hoarder picture book.
They totally are.
Thank you, because I asked the editor, and they're like, "Oh no, we want one," and I'm like, "Okay, now I need to go find a child or a fun story about murdering their parents or the teachers." I thought the crocodile one, where the teacher comes in and it's really the crocodile, I thought that was horrifying as a kid. I thought my teacher was going to eat me.
There's tons.
Okay. What's the next question?
Speaking of illustrators, I wish we could. I'm just going to keep inserting my foot in my mouth. Speaking of illustrators, curious if anyone has any favorite cover artist designers. I'm going to be quiet.
I mean, I do have a favorite recent cover, but it's by a client, but I didn't know what the cover would look like when she signed the contract. But if you look at Circle of Love by Monique Grace Smith, and the illustrations and the cover is Nicole Neidhart, it's just so vibrant. It's called Circle of Love, and there's a rainbow, and there's all these people, and it's so eye-catching, and I just really love that cover.
I mean, I feel like you can recognize a Yuta Onada cover anywhere, which I respect. They did the cover for my client Netta's books, but now when I see a book on the shelf, I'm always like, I bet that's a Yuta cover, and I always look, and it is. They did the Girl Who Drank the Moon. They're anyway, there's a real style to it that I love.
I'm gonna be cliche, and I'm going to plug my cover artist for my book, The Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean. My cover artist, her name is Susanna Gentili. She's an Italian artist who just is so fantastic, and I am obsessed with pretty much all of her art. And now I own a piece of it, basically, which I think is so awesome. She does a lot of feminist art. She does a lot of pieces that really just make you think. And big fan of hers.
So authors talk a lot about, I'm moving on, sorry.
Lane, we're moving on if you're...
No, you've skipped Kari's question about genres that are hot versus soft, or some genres.
No, I think we should go back to the coffee comment because, coffee is very important.
I agree. Lane has to find it first.
No, I found it. Ignoring the coffee comment, authors talk a lot about which genres are hot versus soft. Are some genres really selling better at the moment? Yes. Horror is having... I hate when people say horror is having a moment. Horror is really selling right now because people are realizing horror is amazing and everyone wants to read it. Romantasy.
Yep.
Thriller still. I think thriller's still really popular.
I think romance is like The Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean.
Thank you, Lane.
You're welcome. Sleep with. Okay. Well, I have spotty internet and an outside Bunbury. Jackie, what do you miss most about Australia, and any touristy recommendations? Oh, that's a good question.
I take it that you are American and you are traveling in Australia, which is why you need touristy recommendations. You know what you should do if you're in Western Australia? Go visit my dad. He lives in Perth. He likes fishing and painting, and he likes going out for a good meal and some nice wine. So you should just go to my dad's place, because that's usually what I do when I'm in Western Australia. But certainly Margaret River, if you haven't been down there, if you haven't been down to the south west coast, Monkey Mire, if you want to go and play with the dolphins. I don't know if you're going to the east coast. You should just email me and we'll just kick ideas around.
I think also isn't like the quintessential Australian thing like to go see the koalas and like hold a koala and like take pictures with
hold koalas anymore.
You can't do it anymore?
I mean, you can in the wild if you see them. Like, you can pet them if you see them on a tree, but you
just randomly want to go up to a wild koala and like be like, "Hey, buddy, how's it going, friend?"
I don't think they domesticate koalas.
They sleep all the time. You just go pet them.
Yeah, I joke that I'm actually part koala because I would sleep all the time too.
I think I am, probably.
Is horror evergreen? Yes, horror is. Ever dark? Oh man, I'm stealing that. Everyone forget she came up with that because it's mine now.
Koalas are overrated. Oh, but they're so cute.
But they kind of are overrated.
I mean, yeah, they're very cliche for Australia, but come on, they're still adorable.
I believe it's still legal in Queensland to hold them, but not for long. They're going to ban it. They're not really not into it. Is that why they're banning it, or is there like some kind of you'll become a were koala or something?
Were koalas is a great idea.
That would be a good
picture. It's mine. You can't have it.
Take it.
My book.
Take it. Well, I guess this means I better go to Australia so I can see a koala here pretty soon. Otherwise, I won't be able to. It's cruel. Why is it mean? Really? Oh no.
Well, they're very docile.
Are they?
You don't have to like wrench them off a tree. They're not going to cuddle you. They're going to want to go and sit in the tree.
No, that's true. I held a sloth, like one of those big clawed sloths.
Oh, they're amazing.
Once, yeah, the San Diego Zoo, and it was like holding a baby. It just wanted to like cling to you and snuggle in your arms. And I mean, they caught me when I was trying to take it out, but
yeah, that's
I want to go do like the penguin encounter. I really love penguins. I think they're so adorable.
They
Yeah.
hate it. I saw one trying to get away. They have to be raised from. Oh, that's
Oh, well,
sad.
that
It was
makes sense.
trying to
I
get
mean,
away.
I wouldn't
They
want
are
to.
wild creatures. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Probably beneath their dignity to be cuddled.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, how dare they be so cuddly? I mean, it's like my cat. My cat doesn't want to be cuddled either sometimes, but just still want to love it.
That's life. Something looks cute, it's gonna kill you. Something's gross and ugly, it's beautiful and probably tastes good.
Sure.
Like dragon fruit. What, Anne? That's the way the world works.
Okay. Dragon fruit is good. I actually like dragon fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it? Maybe it's jackfruit or
Jackfruit smells like a decomposing
Yeah.
human corpse.
that's
my understanding.
it's like Dagon, that's what it's called. It's like a Vietnamese fruit, Dagon, something like that. My sister-in-law apparently really likes it.
Interesting. I know
Yes.
that you can use jackfruit as an alternative to like it's almost like a meat alternative if you're vegan.
Mhm.
That's what I've heard.
Okay.
I haven't tried it myself.
That would
so.
make sense. Yeah, I could see that.
Cats are assheads. That's funny.
7.
Hey, I was wrong. It's legal in Queensland, just now banned at the closest koala sanctuary here. Oh, okay, so you can. Yeah, because I see videos of all the Richie famouses like going to exotic places, like holding monkeys and riding, lions and stuff. What about durians? That's what it is. Durians. Yes. My sister-in-law loves durians and like got it and tried to like feed it to us and we're like, no.
Doesn't it like smell really strong, but it tastes
it smells
really sweet?
Yes, it's supposed to taste really good, but it smells like a rotting corpse.
Okay, I'd try it.
We'll put durians next to bug cookies in LA.
So I'd be with you, Stephen. I'd have 7 cats too, or
I
maybe
like that
12.
too.
Oh, they have koalas.
All right, is this the zoo in Colombia? That's a great zoo. Great zoo.
Oh, Columbia, South Carolina. I thought you were saying Columbia, like the
No,
country.
South
And I was
Carolina.
it's like, what?
We lived there when my
Um,
son was born and had a membership, and I went 2 or 3 times a week just to get out of the house. It's a great zoo.
I like zoos, but I can't help but feel like really sad and bad going to zoos because you see like polar bears and like hard cement and fake ponds, and I'm just like, oh, I want to free you, but then like doing so, the polar bear would like slaughter me and eat me. Used to be ranked top 10 in the country. Oh, okay. So have any of you noticed any trends in publishing that I haven't?
Well,
Well,
I don't know because I don't know what you've noticed.
Well, let's play a game. What have you noticed? And I'll see if I've noticed it.
I was just about to say that's saying that Lane has actually noticed something.
True. So whip them out. Maybe I have noticed it. Maybe I haven't.
Let's see, trends in publishing.
I mean, I think on the downside, I think hard sci-fi is a tough sell. I think if you're not doing something against expectations, like we were talking about Caitlin Rosakis's book, playing, I mean, I guess that's fantasy more than sci-fi, but I think editors are looking for people playing against expectations and doing interesting things with tropes. And I think particularly in speculative, but particularly in sci-fi.
There was a week where everyone wanted hard sci-fi, or at least a couple editors told me. And then that went away real quickly because I think sci-fi is really hard to do and hard sci-fi is even harder to do. Not to say it's can't be done, because I represent the Linda Addison who went to college for physics and wrote a great, amazing sci-fi, hard sci-fi.
And I think too that a lot of the, because I love sci-fi, and I think that a lot of the established authors have just really kind of sewn up the that space. And, you know, John Scalzi just did this huge multi book deal, and Connie Willis is still writing, and Nancy Kress is still writing, you know, and all of those folks are all still writing. So if you're just being the next one of those people, the publisher is going to say, well, we've got X, why do we need Y?
So then how do you stand out in sci-fi? Because you can't tell people not to write sci-fi.
No, I'm not going to tell people not to write sci-fi, but I think you want to be subversive. I think, you know, I think you want to do something different and subversive and a little unexpected, which is interesting because the romantasy thing is really just playing off fantasy and romance and doing a lot of the things that have been done before.
And to be honest, it's not new. There's always been romance in fantasy. So it's just maybe moving the romance to more of the A plot than the B plot.
Would Outlander be romantasy? Or
well,
that's not how it's marketed, though.
It's not how it's marketed, but you could easily call it that.
Hard sci-fi is hard to write. Yes, it is. I'm working on a hard sci-fi trilogy. It's hard to get the science right. Don't make it a trilogy yet, because the first book hasn't sold. So if the first book doesn't sell, you're kind of shit out of luck on the next two.
Well, I mean, that is saying that you definitely want to traditionally publish it, because being an indie author and indie publishing it is also always an option. And I think that a lot of times the indie markets do well or do even better in some genres than others. Like RPG is huge in indie publishing, right? But in traditional publishing, they don't even know what RPG is. So just saying.
Paranormal romance too.
That too.
I mean, if publishers paid attention, I'd be making 6 figures a year on some of my self-published authors.
Cozy mystery does really well, self-published.
Yep.
Some historical romance does very well self-published. And honestly, going back to the point about sci-fi, I think the people who are good at the indie stuff, you know, can make a name for themselves in the indie. So, I mean, really just repeating what Anne said, but if you have a very clear vision of what you're doing and it's not the thing the market wants, sci-fi is one of those areas where you can do quite well indie publishing.
In Andy Weir, The Martian, that was originally self-published on like his blog. He and his buddies, I think he just wanted to write something to show that it's possible to live on Mars or do all that stuff on Mars for his NASA sci-fi buddies.
Yeah, and Hugh Howey with Silo, that was all self-published.
Yeah. And I know sci-fi horror, people are looking for sci-fi horror. So, I mean, that's a way to get sci-fi. I don't know. I'm curious if you and your clients generally shoot for a novel a year. Ooh, I got stuff to say about this. Or every other year, or is it more individualized from client to client based on how prolific they are? Ooh, Scott J. Moses. I know why you're asking this. I think the standard for a lot of my clients now is a novel a year. And I think it's because with the indie hybrid standard that's kind of taken over, that people are thinking they need to stay relevant, so that if they don't have something out for a year, everyone's going to forget about them. And I get that. And I mean, I've noticed Stephen King is always having, I think, at least a book a year. So I do have clients who need to have a book a year. Some have like 5 books a year. They publish with Penguin Random House or Simon and Schuster, and then they do their indie stuff. That's my folks. I don't know about you all.
I mean, I have a lot of clients who do standalones and switch genres, so it's not such a big deal. But where I have clients writing series, like I mentioned Asha Grayling, that's a series opener, and she has to come out with books in that series. Jay Gilchrist with her Mayfair Dagger series, Marcy Rendon with her Cash Black Bear series. The readers are expecting a book a year in those series. Most of those authors also write other stuff. So I think that's where it becomes interesting, where you have like one barrel that you have to keep filling, but you also want to do other stuff. But I have plenty of clients who just, they'll write a standalone that'll be out on sub. They'll play around with ideas for the next thing. It might be a different, genre or whatever. So I'm kind of all over the place.
Kelly, and
yeah, I'm thinking I've got clients who are writing a book a year, and I've got clients who it tends to be maybe my more literary leaning clients that are taking a couple of years to write their books and their standalones. And then, I work with kidlets. So a lot of times they'll write a novel and then they'll play with some picture books, then write a different kind of project. But I think my more commercial writers are writing a book a year. It's safe to say. I mean, yes, they are.
I think for me, it varies for clients. So it depends on who it is and what they're doing and what they're working on and who their editor is. And there's a lot of factors involved. So same, but also different. So
I always tell clients we don't want to muddy the market or flood the market with your material. I'm talking about submission. So, I mean, I don't like sending out numerous books at the same time, because we want an editor to gasp with joy that the next so-and-so's book came in. Not like, oh, this is another one from Lane. Like, ugh. The traditional industry seems to not be interested in standard rom-com right now, in favor of romance plus. Ooh, I've never heard that. With a ghost or a heist or a time loop. How do you see this trend lasting? See, this is something you need to school me on, because I haven't done a ton of romance lately. Fiction romance. So I didn't know the romance plus. I mean, Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean is rom-com plus.
It's not a rom-com. I wouldn't call it a rom-com. It's funny, but it's not a rom-com. Did you have a response, Kelly? I don't want to.
No, it's just that how long do you see this trend lasting? If we could predict how long trends were going to last and what's next, man, we'd be really, really on top of our game. But sadly, I'm not exactly sure how long the trend will last. But I think it's safe to say, again, it's back to subverting expectations. When the expectation of Romance Plus gets old, then they're going to be looking for the next thing.
And I think one reason for that too, I mean, Kelly on the call, not Kelly D, that the question may be a little oversimplified, because editors want the same but different. They don't want the same. Like I was just saying that about sci-fi. They don't want more of the same book they've already published. I know romance is a little bit different because there's all these tropes and you expect the tropes, but it's not, I wouldn't see it, and Anne will know this better than me, but I wouldn't see it necessarily as romance plus. It's just the question that an editor would always ask is, what makes this stand out in the market? And so saying, plus, it could be a ghost or a heist or a time loop, or it could just be a character we haven't seen before or a situation we haven't seen before. I think you don't want to confuse like a market trend with, you always have to distinguish your work from what else is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, for example, since we brought it up, The Seemingly Impossible Love Life of Amanda Dean is a romance, right? But the thing that makes it different is that it is not linear. So it's not a linear timeline. You do not know who the love interest technically is or who she's going to marry until you get to the end of the book. If you figured it out, you're amazing. And you pay attention. That's great. I love it if people figure it out. But if you don't, that's okay too. So because it's not completely spelled out. So it is a romance. It has to have a happily ever after, but also you don't necessarily know what's happening either. So it's kind of, it makes it different. So I always like to tell people who are looking to break out into any new genre, age group, whatever, not just to read widely, but you want to read debuts. Read debuts in that specific genre and see what they're doing, because that is what you're trying to do. You're trying to break out from the rest of the novels that are already out there on the shelf. So what can you do? What can you bring to the table? What can your work bring that makes it that plus, if you want to put it in those terms, but different?
And for an author recently returning to querying after an agent separation, shift to write to that trend or wait out for a rom-com return? I think just write what your heart desires and it'll shine through and hopefully land you where you want to be.
Yeah, and we go back to that other question of, read debuts in that genre. If you want to write rom-com, awesome, do that. But also read the debut rom-coms. What are they doing? How can yours sit next to those? You don't want it to be the same. You want it to sit next to it. So how do you make that happen?
Tragedy. I'm afraid of traditional rejection and don't have the work ethic to self-publish. Yeah.
I have nothing to say about this.
Ooh, say, Jackie, go.
I mean, I know you mean it as a joke, so I'm kind of joking as well. But if you don't have the work ethic to self-publish, you don't have the work ethic to traditionally publish either.
That's true. And I will say, though, kudos for being very self-aware.
Charles Hall. I use Kidlit as a way to be more prolific as I work through the science in my sci-fi stuff. I don't know what to say to that. I guess good. That all makes sense. Thanks, everyone. You're welcome. What word counts do you all consider standard amongst given genres, or that you consider to be cutoffs, hard sells? And what are circumstances or interests that allow exceptions? What's the largest or shortest word counts that you've accepted? Ooh, accepted.
While Lane ponders, hold on. While you ponder, I just want to make a comment. Exceptions. There are always exceptions to rules, but thinking that you're the exception just makes you the rule. So keep that in mind. But go on, Lane.
The lowest I've accepted or would accept is like $60K, but I sold a novella at $40K that expanded into a novel of, I don't know, I think $60K, maybe $59K. I think for a debut, $100K is a very hard cutoff. I think, and it really depends on the genre. So, I mean, a horror could go anywhere from 60 to 90K. A fantasy, you're looking at, for someone who's not a debut, 90 to 120. But I think for a debut, cut it off at 100. The Floor has the floor.
There are numerous places you can look up traditional word counts, and I would advise you to do that. But because it's it's different for Kidlit too.
Yeah, based on age group, genre, it's all going to be different. So I think that is something to look at. I think the thing that you want to do is you want to look at the range and you want to try to fall somewhere in that range. You don't want to necessarily push the boundaries one way or the other. You want to try to find a soft spot to land somewhere in the middle of that range if you want your best chance. So that's the advice that I think that I would give.
And the other thing I would say for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's all about pacing. And where people tend to have these really voluminous word counts where you're on the heavy end of the spectrum, often when I look at those manuscripts, particularly from authors who are less experienced and newer to writing, there's like a million places you could cut unnecessary stuff and the pacing lag. So if I see a submission in my inbox and it's 120,000 words and I read the first chapter and like nothing much is happening, you know, for me, that's worse than the 120,000 words, because I just sold, like, I think of mystery books. I love mystery, right? I think of mysteries as being sort of in the 70 to 80K range, and then you have a nice tight plot. I just sold one in the 90s, like it was 94, 95, but it was tight. The pacing was tight. I wasn't bored. You know, every scene served a narrative purpose. So for me, in many ways, I understand that the guidelines are useful because people can look at their word count and look at the guideline and go, oh, where can I cut? But if you can really, really think about your writing craft and think about, what is this scene doing? Is this scene actually moving my plot forward, or is it just giving the reader a whole lot of information? Then you've got a pacing problem.
My question is a bit difficult, so feel free to ignore it. Ooh, no, we love difficult. Do you think the middle grade YA book bans are partly responsible for the slowdown difficulty in those markets right now?
I actually don't. Anne's nodding, but I would shake my head.
I don't think they're helping is the problem. I don't think that they're helping. And I think that I wouldn't say that's why there's a slowdown in the market, but I don't think that they're helping the market in any way. I think that they're more detrimental than they are positive to our industry. So,
I mean, I think really editors could answer that better than agents, because they're the
probably
ones.
could.
Yeah.
But I would say actually that YA is picking up. I just feel like these slowdowns are cyclical. I think the market gets flooded with material, and then it's just a supply and demand issue too. We have to be aware of that. I also think middle grade in particular is wrestling with readers having lots of different formats to read, between graphic novels and, the traditional novel, and editors, there's just more competition for their attention. So I think there's a lot of reasons, but I don't think it can be pinned necessarily on the book bans.
I'd actually be more likely to mention the pandemic as a reason, right? Because if you think of who the middle graders are now, and I know because I have one, they were the kids learning to read when the pandemic hit. And, my older kids are very advanced readers, and my current middle grader is a very reluctant reader, and she may be anyway, right? I mean, not all kids love reading, but I think when I talk to teachers and librarians, I think that group, the teachers and the librarians often fall back on the tried and true backlist that they're familiar with teaching, and they're perhaps being a little less experimental with new stuff. Because I suspect this group, we know that all the educational levels slipped a little bit during the pandemic, and I think that's the middle grade group that we're seeing now.
Right.
And no spoilers.
Well, a romance will always have a happily ever after, so that's not technically a spoiler.
Yeah.
We just didn't mention that there were aliens involved, which I apparently just...
And spiders.
Yes, spiders.
People, spiders.
Mark Matthews, hey Candace, you're spending an hour of your evening as soup. No, Mark, we don't support authors here. No, I'm kidding. Obviously. I'm kidding. I can already see Anne about to yell at me.
I'm trying to read. I missed what you said, so.
Oh, Mark was showing support for someone, and I said no, jokingly. Okay. But he's right. As long as you're doing book stuff, you're doing book stuff. For previously trad published authors, do book sales impact your decision when considering new clients? If yes, what's that threshold look like? I'm not going to insert my foot in my mouth first, so...
It doesn't matter to me.
Me neither. When I've gone out with things, if the author does have a track record and maybe it's not the best track record, I sort of want to know about it so I can answer a question from an editor. So, for example, I have a very successful client whose last book before the first one I sold when she moved agents, the prior book hadn't sold well, and I wanted to know that, and I wanted to have the story ready to explain to the editor, which, you know, it wasn't a problem. We just explained it. And if it's a huge problem with marketing, you can always go under a pen name anyway. You can always, you know, file off the serial numbers and write the new piece under a pen name. And there's just, I just don't think it's a big deal. I just think there's lots. And also, if you've published before, you've worked with an agent before, probably you've worked with an editor before, and I'd much rather work with someone who knows how to be a professional writer, because there's lots of reasons books don't sell.
Yeah.
So, you know, that doesn't really bother me.
And most of the time, those reasons have nothing to do with the author whatsoever.
Right.
So.
Right.
I've had to have plenty of conversations with publishers where they say, how come this person didn't sell well? That book didn't do well. Well, yeah, it's the publisher's job to sell the book. They just write the book.
You're like, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? Why didn't it sell well? Can you explain that to me?
I mean, it's easy to hit the list if you have $100,000 in marketing. I'll most likely have to self-publish my memoir due to controversial content. Many states will most certainly ban it from public libraries. When it happens, should I lean into that for publicity? I think so. I
think the question is above my pay grade, because I'm not a marketing expert for self-published books, so I would not, you know, I broker deals with traditional publishers, and that's my job, and I'm a contract person, so I don't have the expertise to answer that.
That, I co-sign that. Jackie speaks for all of us there. Is there anything?
Usually no one listens to me.
I always listen. I always listen. I am the listener. Is there anything in traditional publishing that just won't work sell? I hear we want a unique premise within the standard tropes depending on genre, but is there anything you can think of that is too outside the limit of unique, or thinking structure, or a premise that doesn't fit writing style, or a genre blend that doesn't blend well? Does that make sense? Yes. And I think content-wise, I know editors have told me it seems very... People don't want drugs, which I think is a little odd. I don't particularly remember if I've read anything with drugs, and editors have told me they don't want drugs. But I think...
And you're talking adult, though, because
yes,
drugs is a different thing in YA.
Yes, I'm talking about adult fiction. People don't like drugs. I don't know why. That's above my pay grade. I think genre blending is I think all genres can blend together. I think mostly. I mean, horror romance, find a very cool one today.
I think when you take your topic, your premise, and you take it out of what a reader's expectations are, that is where you're going to run into trouble. So if you're trying to sell, like, for example, if you want to try to sell a romance, but there's not a happily ever after, that is not a romance. So you're destroying the idea that the reader already has. Readers have expectations, and a reader who reads a romance novel expects the ending to be a happily ever after or a happily for now. So if you are trying to destroy those kinds of reader expectations within your specific project, I think that's where you can run into trouble, especially with readers. So that is something to consider.
And I think I'm going to co-sign what Anne said before in response to another question. A lot of the answer to this question, I think, is really about reading a lot. And you know, because I'm co-signing two things that Anne said, because if you assume you're the expectation without actually understanding what the sort of guidelines are within the various genres, then it's not going to work. But if you have read a bunch of books in the various genres you want to blend, and you have a sense of what that might feel like to a reader, you know, then you're working from a place of knowledge. And as one of my MFA instructors used to say, and I love it, ignorance of the canon is not originality.
Mark, haha, right on. Yes, we adore Mark Matthews. Very funny, nice guy. Ran in the elevator with him once. Or traveled, went up, down. Road, yes.
Road.
As you can see, I'm very good with words. It's hard to even know what's considered not the best earning out. Oh, best earning out, but earning out with a very small advance is confusing. Yes, I wonder.
I can sort of answer that just from experiences I've had, that where I've had those discussions, it's not about earning out. It's about how many copies did you sell. So it doesn't matter what your advance was. It doesn't matter how much money, you made or the publisher made. It's about, did you sell 8,000 copies? Did you sell 35 copies?
I think it also goes to publisher expectation. So they're going to create a print run based on what they believe the sales should be. So you could have book A and book B, right? And they each get paid two different things. But book A, they print 100,000 copies, and book B, they print 10,000 copies. But both books sell 8,000 copies. Book B is going to seem, oh, that's very successful. But book A is going to be like, oh, that's not successful at all, right? So there's that also level of publisher expectation that goes along with that.
But that's on the publisher.
That's on the publisher. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you don't have to earn out your advance for the publisher to make money.
Yes.
Right.
Ooh, here's one of my clients, Hank. As there seems to be a willingness on the part of major houses to publish novellas, what do you consider the word count range for a novella to be? I've seen a variety of definitions. I think anywhere from 25,000 to 49,000, because I know a novel is 50,000. I mean, that's how I'm operating.
I say 20 to 45, but that's about the same. So.
Yeah. Okay. Great answers and insight on drugs. I think the expectation part makes a lot of sense in the canon answer. I still don't understand why in adult fiction editors or publishers don't want drugs. I mean, they'll tackle a lot of dark stuff, but drugs seem not to be one of them.
I'm wondering though, and like I know you and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, if it might be about character agency, if drugs might be a cop out for developing a character with agency, because if you can say, oh, this drug made this person do this, then editors might be thinking, well, that's less narratively satisfying than if you do something more original than that.
Yeah, because I always say that, reality doesn't make sense, but fiction has to. So maybe you're right there. Yeah. So in YA, there's drugs, because I know it's kids coming of age and all that jazz, and there's drinking and...
There can be. It's not a requirement.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think, and Cuban Girls Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, they're out doing drugs, or, you know what I mean?
They don't. Did you read it?
Yes, I read it a very long time ago, but I read it. I was saying they did. I know it's not a requirement because they're not out doing drugs. Okay. Any other questions? Thoughts about the industry? Rumors you want to discuss? Anne's mouth dropped.
Oh, the rumors. Watch out. Where's the tea?
Yep. My addiction horror anthologies did darn well. Self-plug. Oh, I'm curious. Who published it? Was it an indie press? Was it self-published? Was it a big press? I guess big is relative. I mean, Big Five or... is Bloomsbury indie? It's an independent.
Him.
Me. Okay. We'll get
awesome.
Yeah, that's good. Good. addiction horror anthology sounds awesome. Drop the title. Small me, Mark Matthews. That's great. I love it. Funny guy. Yeah, drop the title, Mark, and we'll put it up here for, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a self-plug.
Yeah.
If you don't give the title, it's not a self-plug.
Right? And we've been mentioning Anne's book for like, an hour or two.
I mean,
Garden of Friends, Lullabies for Suffering, and Orphans of Bliss. That's three different ones. I am taking a picture so I can get those later. Here are some tapes. I just got a text from a client. So it is a never-ending job, as you can see. Thoughts on recent Threads kerfuffle over authors paying for tables at cons. Oh, I'm not on Threads enough. I missed this.
Yeah, I didn't see this.
What's the 411, Kelly?
Now
Let us know.
Yeah, give us what's going on, Kelly.
I have not heard this one.
No,
I'm not on. I mean, I am not on Threads that much.
I'm not on Threads either. Or I am on Threads, but apparently not enough.
I'm like going over there right now.
So am I.
Authors paying for tables at cons. I have not heard this.
Yes.
No.
Kelly has the 411.
I never.
Does that mean tables for functions or tables to actually sell your books? Like marketing tables or dinner tables? Because I've heard of both. I've heard of authors doing both, so I don't know what the kerfuffle is about.
Really?
Want to know.
I know. Kelly, come on. Don't keep us in suspense.
Don't keep us in suspense, Kelly.
If it's not in the Kidlit
you should put it up on the screen. Lane, you didn't put a question
I'm not going to.
There you go.
PSA to artists and market vendors. Oh, that's from February. Let's find this together.
That's what we're all looking.
Yeah. Houston Labor Day, Saturday, Cowboys. Oh, Kelly, come on, man. Atlanta, this Thursday. Ladies of Night. Ooh, here we go. Costs went up big time for a Polycon, and it sparked a lot of complaints over whether it makes sense even for authors to pay when they're the draw. Ooh, I kind of agree with you. Because, I mean, I'm sure a Polycon is making money. This is something Anne and I talk about a lot. That, I mean, I think money should flow to the authors.
I don't think a Polycon is actually making a ton of money when it comes to it. I think that they're probably breaking even. I follow Jennifer Armentrout on socials. Maybe Kelly does too. She seems very ethical in what she's doing. It's she's also an author herself, and so I feel like she does her best to treat authors very fairly. So so I don't know. I mean, it's a good question though, because we do talk about this in an agent capacity, right? Because agents a lot of times are draws for conferences, and then they want us to come for free, or they'll pay for our travel, but they don't want to pay us for our work while we're there. But we're doing critiques or we're taking pitches, which then require us to do more hours of labor once we get back to our desks back home. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely an interesting conundrum to think about. I don't know.
I'm jumping up to say I had no idea what a Polycon is, so I just
it's the
probably
biggest romance convention that there is, and full disclosure, I actually am going to be attending next year.
Well, I guess it makes sense since RWA is no longer,
So it's like the #1 romance readers convention.
Oh, okay. Because RWA is more of a writers conference.
Correct.
This is a readers conference.
This is for
Okay.
readers, yes, and a lot of authors are going to. It's all we're all going to be there. It's a lot of authors.
Yeah. So that sounds above my pay grade. I'm gonna shut up. What kind of online presence do you recommend for your clients? If not Threads, which platforms would you like them to be on? Should they have their own websites, TikTok videos? Website, yes. Social media, I think it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
I mean, some people aren't safe online, you know. I've had authors who, in their contracts, it says their real name can't be out there. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who do that for various reasons. I'm thinking spies, secret agents. I'm half joking, but being serious too. Working on a con right now, and we are charging for vendor tables, but we have a lower cost way of promoting your books by putting bookmarks in our swag bags. I'm on the board for SC Writers Association. Okay, so
I've
that's
been to
good to
that
know.
one. That's a great conference.
Oh, good. I mean, I've only ever run cons as in like a client retreat for clients to come, and I never charged them when I ran it because I don't want to make money off people, and it was really expensive.
Right, but that's where the push pull is, right? Like you want to do these events, and to have these events, they cost money, and so somehow that money has to come from somewhere. So, and you can't expect. No one should have expected you, Lane, to front the cost of everything, right? To have these things. I do retreats for my writers, right? And we have the ability to have it so people don't have to pay for where we're staying. So they don't pay for when they get there, but we ask that everyone contribute a little bit for food, because otherwise, how are we going to feed everyone, right? So we feed them the whole weekend, whatever, and they have to get there on their own. So there is some cost associated with it, but we do try to do it as cheaply as possible. And I think that that's where the rub is that you need a convention hall, you need somewhere big in order to have and house some of these things. But then the bigger they are, the more money they cost.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we go to LA, you know, I front the house as long as everyone gets there, but the more people go, the bigger the house we need. And I mean, obviously I covered the house, but I mean, it's just an interesting, like you said, conundrum. Yay, Linda Addison. We love Linda Addison. So weird I couldn't use chat when I don't know either. It's weird. Question: how do you keep up your energy for a book that is taking time to sell but you believe in?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
And you're excited, go.
You want to go, Kelly? I'll let you go because you got something.
I've sold numerous projects after 2.5 years on sub. And the way I do it is honestly every few months when I start to wonder, okay, did I miss something? I dip back into the book and I fall in love with it all over again. And I think that's really what keeps the energy is, you know, I remember why I loved it so much to begin with. And that keeps me going and willing to keep plugging it and just really pounding the pavement. It's so much about finding just the right person to just fall in love with the project the same way. And I really do think it happens. It just sometimes it takes patience. That's how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just passion. We're passionate. We pick projects that we love. We pick to work with authors that we love because we're passionate about them and we want them to succeed. And so really, it's not hard to want to champion who we believe in. At least I don't find it difficult to champion the authors that I believe in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm stubborn. I'm not afraid to beat a dead horse. Not in real life because I love horses. I used to ride horses. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it is just a matter of time. And there's been books that I sold because an editor dropped off, and I'm like, oh wait, you're a new editor there. Do you want this book? And then they buy it for big bucks. So, I mean, I think it's usually a matter of when, not if. And I know why Linda's asking, and Linda's amazing. And the Linda Addison, she's on my desktop as the Linda Addison. That's her file name. I'm doing 2 romance cons this year, coincidentally, same name. Oh, interesting.
Huh. We should connect, Kelly.
Yes, let's connect, Kelly. The comment you made about reality not always making sense, but fiction having to, is one of the most important pieces of advice a writer can get. Realizing that is key to fixing up many common problems. Thank you, Hank. I like that. Linda, the physicist. Yeah, see, Linda's the client who has a physicist degree. She's amazing. I love Linda Addison. Has joined the Fed. I just found out how wicked smart you are, Linda. Yeah, Linda's super smart. Mark, haha, most folks don't. See, she majored in physics at Carnegie Mellon University. Her book that we're working on is absolutely amazing, and I love it. And it's like Arrival in a way, and yeah, exactly, it's incredible. Any final questions? Because we've been at this for an hour and 10 minutes. Final thoughts, final questions, confessions. What was that show on HBO? It was like something Confessions. And it was just random people, like, I don't know, in the middle of conversations. And I don't know if they even knew they were being filmed, which seems like it's probably illegal now that I think about it.
I don't think it is. I teach a course on privacy law, and it's a good idea to get a release, but in most states, it's not illegal.
Really?
Mm.
Oh. I know for recording, there's like 2 consent state laws or 1 consent.
What?
I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's. I think you're talking about things that are different. Like there's there's expectation that if you're in a public place, that what you're viewing is, or what is public, and so there's more nuance to it.
I agree. Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us. If you're on our YouTube, click like, subscribe, and click the little bell that I realize notifies you when we have stuff like this. I think we're a Rip Riot. Thank you, Rowan Hill. Yes, thank you all. And we will catch you next month, which we'll do better planning on, because we only set this. I always forget about these, and then I'm like, oh my god, there's a week left, we have to set it up, and then we only have like 6 days to promote as opposed to 30 days. So
what we should do is just like pick a, I'm going to throw, don't quote me on this, like the final Wednesday of every month we do this, or the final whatever of every month. And then that way it's always the same day if it's not the same date, so it's just makes it easy.
I like the final Wednesday. You called it.
Or whatever it may be.
Nope. So. Now we're stuck on Wednesday, and you called
it. The rest of our lives.
Yep, the rest of our lives.
Well, today is Tuesday, just so everyone is clear. I think it's Tuesday. Yeah.
I'll be on my deathbed being like, it's Wednesday.
I like Tobias Tuesday.
I do like Tobias Tuesday.
Yeah,
oh, that's even better.
That's
oh, and Wednesday is Sarah's write-in. So yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
I need
Tobias
to go to that
Tuesdays. So I can be on my deathbed being like, I'm gonna miss Tobias Tuesdays. All right. Bye.
Thanks for coming.